Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another great edition of Cannabis Common Sense. Tonight we have as a guest a little bit Nick Tanem coming up in less than 5 minutes. Nick Tanem is also known as Nika T, and he has been with Essential Extracts and a long-time cannabis expert, one of the instructors at the Ganjier program, which we'll be talking more about. But without further ado, let's bring on the infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
Okay, we only have a couple stories tonight for our hemp news. First, out of Vancouver, Canada, poly drug users frequently engage in the use of cannabis in order to decrease their consumption of stimulants like crystal methamphetamine, according to data published in the journal Addictive Behaviors. I have a collection of antique bottles, and many of them say they're for users of opiates, cocaine, alcohol delirium tremens, and chloroform. Apparently chloroform used to be a problem, but Canadian researchers surveyed a cohort of 297 polydrug users who engaged in the use of cannabis and unregulated stimulants. Nearly half of those surveyed reported having consumed cannabis to manage their stimulant cravings. Of those, 78% reported decreasing their stimulant use during periods of cannabis use. In other words, about 30%. Investigators reported that cannabis was frequently associated with reductions among those who used methamphetamine. A pair of trials from Brazil and Canada reported that the use of cannabis is associated with the decreased use of crack cocaine in dependent subjects. By contrast, a 2021 study reported that the daily administration of CBD only failed to reduce cocaine cravings any better than placebo in subjects with a history of moderate to severe cocaine abuse. The study's authors concluded, quote, "These findings indicate that cannabis use to manage stimulant cravings is a common harm reduction strategy and suggest that this may be an effective strategy to reduce stimulant use among people who use unregulated drugs. There's an absence of established pharmacotherapies for treatment of stimulant use disorder," end quote. Numerous other studies have previously reported that cannabis consumers often substitute it in place of other substances, including alcohol, tobacco, and prescription opioids. This study, Cannabis Use to Manage Stimulant Cravings Among People Who Use Unregulated Drugs, appears in this month's edition of Addictive Behaviors. Our last story tonight is from Sichuan, China. Men who consume cannabis are far less likely than non-users to experience kidney stones, according to data published in the Chinese Frontiers in Pharmacology. A team of Chinese investigators assessed the relationship between cannabis use and kidney stones in a representative sample of over 14,000 U.S. subjects between the ages of 20 and 59. The researchers reported that marijuana use among men was inversely correlated with kidney stones. Men who consume cannabis most frequently experience the lowest risk. The authors concluded, quote, "To our knowledge, this study is the first study to explore the association between marijuana use and the risk of kidney stones from a population-based National Health and Nutrition Examine survey data set. Taken together, our findings suggest that regular marijuana male users were related to a lower risk of kidney stones." This study, the association between marijuana use and kidney stones, appears in Frontiers of Pharmacology. That is the end of our Hemp News segment tonight. If you or a loved one are looking for help finding a doctor to help you get a medical marijuana permit, we have a referral anywhere in the USA. call us at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. Now we'll go to our interview. Keep watching and help us restore hemp. Good night. I'd like to introduce Nick Tanem, also known as Nika T, who is I met in Cali, Colombia at Copa Farallones, but you're also a global speaker, a DJ, and an extract specialist. So welcome to our show, Nick.
Right on, man. Thank you so much for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
I'm glad to do it. You know, you've been doing a lot. We had a good time there at Copa Farallones last year, and I've been meaning to try to get you on the show. And so we're always looking for content. I've been doing this show since '96, so this show is 166.
Wow.
And our shows here.
That's what's up.
But so did you start out as a DJ spinning records, or and then got into extracts, or how did you come into your current career?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. So I grew up in Northern California where cannabis and music was very prevalent in my upbringing and very accepted. So I grew up with both of them hand in hand. I would say, though, that I followed my DJ career first before I started following a career in cannabis. I was interested in both and knew that they both went hand in hand. But I started working for a company called True School out of the San Francisco Bay Area, and they focused on hip hop, electronic, reggae, world music, promotion, and street marketing. And I worked with True School from the ground up. I started as a guy on the streets hitting cars with flyers and flyering different clubs. Eventually, I was getting.
So you were just a teenager then, is that right?
Yeah. I was in my teens, and eventually, I got stacks of flyers, and I learned which clubs I could go to with which flyers and how I could get in, because some of these clubs were higher end clubs, and they didn't want some young teenager in them with a stack of flyers making a mess. So you kind of learned your ropes, and in doing so, eventually I kind of moved up the ladder at True School and started DJing. And really, Ren taught me, along with his brethren DC, taught me how to market myself as a DJ and which avenues to pursue, which avenues didn't cost me a lot of money that I could reach a lot of people and fill out clubs. So I really learned to market myself as Nika T, the DJ, before Nika T, kind of ventured into the hash realm, if you will.
Yeah. So how did you get involved in terms of solventless? I know you're one of the pioneers in the solventless movement, right?
Yeah. So
and explain to our audience what solventless means. It doesn't have butane or alcohol or petrochemical.
Yeah, I'm literally wearing the shirt today because it's crazy to see how far it's come, but I actually coined that term solventless. And the reason for that, the reason for me coining that term is I was making hash. I was making water hash. I didn't want to call it bubble hash because my hash looked different than the bubble hash on the shelf. And if I brought that hash into my dispensaries that I was working with and told the bud tenders this is some bubble hash, they'd look at their shelf at their bubble hash and they're like, no, it's not. So they got confused.
What was that? About when was that?
This was 2010, 2012, 2010. Yeah, I'd say. Yeah, 2010, because that's when we had Highland and Cherry, and
it was just medical then in California, in the whole country anyway, in terms of.
Sorry,
it was only medical then.
2010 was just medical in Colorado and everywhere throughout the world. Everything was medical only. If that's even, it's interesting that the new terminology of recreation versus medical. I think it's all wellness. Just to touch on that real quick. But I brought in this hash into the dispensaries and I didn't know what to call it, and so they kind of threw me back to the drawing board. And I was hanging out with one of the first influencers in our space, which was this gentleman named Paul Token. I mean, actually, no disrespect, maybe you are the first influence in our space, talking about how long this cannabis radio show has been going on.
But there were other people out there doing it. When I first went to a marijuana protest at the White House in 1978,
There you
but
go.
I certainly organized it. But there were a lot of people doing it, and I met Todd McArea from the Bay Area there, and
Who's
a
that?
number of
Todd
other.
McCormick?
No, Todd McArea.
Oh,
I've
okay.
met Todd McArea too,
He's
but
also a Bay Todd, so I was like, oh shit.
yeah, that's true. No, Todd McArea was the first medical marijuana doctor, and in fact,
Okay.
I ran his clinic when he passed away from about 2009 to 2010 in El Cerrito, there
Oh,
next to Berkeley
all
for a
right.
while.
All right. All right.
But
I love it.
that's part of my gig. But let's get back to you. So about 2010, 2011, you started, and your photo went away. There, you're
Yeah,
back.
sorry, somebody was calling in.
Uh-oh, I know how that works. I forgot to turn mine off here, but
I know.
anyway. So should give you a second. So let's get back though to 2010 when you were pioneering this new water hash, and we were talking about solventless as a concept.
Yeah.
Up to then,
So
a lot of the extracts were butane. People were blowing up back then with
there was a lot
butane.
of butane. There was ethanol extracts. There was dry sift. There was water hash. But when I'd say around 2009 to 2010, maybe even earlier, actually, really 2005 is when I first, or 2004, when I first started seeing a lot of this butane hash oil flooding the market. And I had customers and friends that loved this stuff. It was something new to them. It was gold in color. It was honey like in viscosity, and it was something new and strong, and the flavor was amazing. But there was so little known, and so I started, bringing my product to dispensaries, and my product then was a mechanical separation. So we utilize water to carry the mechanically separated trichome heads to their destination. We utilize silk screen mesh to separate those different trichome head sizes. And initially, we were putting out, I'd say pretty standard water hash. But as the market for butane grew, I needed to compete. And I was selling this butane hash. I was blasting it on my back porch, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was giving my friends. There was so little information back then, that I got scared. And so I started really honing in my variables in my water hash process to recreate colors and consistencies like I was seeing in the hydrocarbon world or the butane extracts world. So, one of the first consistencies that became really popular in the butane extracts world was earwax. That's what they called it. It was called earwax. And I'd say like the late 90s to early 2000s, mid 2000s, up to 2009, earwax was a popular term. And so I kind of took it upon myself to recreate something that looked like that earwax, that vaporized like that earwax, because we didn't quite have dabs back then. When I was starting to get into this, we had knife hits, and we
Remember,
were just getting into the skillet times.
we put our knives on the eye of the stove and let them get red hot, and then
Yeah.
squeeze the flour between it with like a cut off 2-liter bottle to inhale that
And
was.
around this time, you start seeing, some of the, like, not to be frank, but crack pipe looking oil burners, if you will, that were repurposed hash oil smoking devices. And then you get into the skillets, and there's a long history there, that I don't need to fully get into here. But my goal was to recreate those products that were made utilizing butane without the use of any chemical solvents. And so I started kind of going down the line of controlling variables. We started using fresher material. This was before fresh frozen, before we really started playing with fresh frozen material, live material. But we started playing with fresher material, not the stuff that was just on the side of the road. Because back in the late 90s, I was picking up material that was literally left on the side of the road because people didn't want it on their property. They didn't know the value of the trim. But instead of trim, we started using the larf and the small nugs, and we started getting it fresher from the farmers. We started controlling the variables of the water and the inputs we utilize, like the ice itself, controlling those variables, utilizing reverse osmosis water, reverse osmosis ice. And then we started getting into moving away from doing this on the farm or in a barn and doing it in more of a clean and sterile environment and cooler temperatures, because we noticed that this resin was getting really sticky and almost getting darker faster because we were trapping moisture in these hotter environments. So we started controlling the environmental variables, from the temperature and the humidity, airflow, a lot of different variables. And as we started controlling these variables, we started really creating products that looked and vaporized like the butane products. And so I was hanging out with one of the influencers back then, and his name was Paul Token. He was one of the first YouTube influencers. And we were hanging out a lot, and I brought him my newest rendition. And I'm like, yo, bro, this looks like earwax. What should we call it? And he really, I think, together, but he was one of the first people in that room to utilize the term solventless. So I give a lot of respect to Paul Token. But I brought that product to him and we talked about it. And originally, the name we came up with was solventless wax, because we wanted to recreate that earwax like consistency, but without the use of butane. We dubbed it solventless wax. As hydrocarbon consistencies evolved over time and shatter became popular, and different viscosities of the oil became popular, we recreated those. And when we started recreating other consistencies after the solventless wax, around 2010, I'd say, solventless became the umbrella term for anything mechanically separated. So it included water hash, it included dry sift, because we wanted to really, the main reason I coined the term was because I was creating a product that nobody had seen before, as far as the color and the consistency and how it was made. And so we needed to separate it for our bud tenders to understand how to sell it. And that was really the first reason. And very soon after that, I realized that other people wanted to understand what we were doing. And I couldn't sell this product unless I taught people what this product was. So I thought, all right, I'm going to take it upon myself to be the educator and teach people what I'm doing, teach people why I called it solventless, and teach people why it's different. I'm not going to say that it's better. I personally don't smoke any hydrocarbons. Well, I dab from time to time to taste things or to review, but it's not like my go-to. But there's different avenues that I feel like hydrocarbons are still useful for. So best or better is subjective to me. And I personally love solventless. And that's really where it started. And it's pretty crazy to see where it's at today. In the very beginning, I wanted to hold the term to myself. And then I really quickly realized that, no, this is a term for the community, and this needs to be for the community. I started seeing other companies put out hoodies with solventless on them. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is for the people. And that's what I've continued to do, is travel around the world teaching people about solventless methodology, building out laboratories, equipping people and companies with the right equipment for the right budget, and teaching them the SOPs that I've learned over the years. And every year it changes. Every year I learn something new. Every day I learn something new. So I think that there's plenty more room to grow in this solventless space. But we've come a long way in a short amount of time. We're talking just about a decade, a little over a decade.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't until 2014 till California, or was it 2016 when California? No, it's 2014 or 16 when California legalized the adult use market. And so,
yeah, 2015.
yeah, that's
2015, I believe.
voted on it here.
Maybe I'm no. Wait, I'm tripping. Colorado was 2015. I don't think California did until 2019.
Yeah, well,
2019 is when we launched in the rec market.
Just history is my specialty, so I can tell you, California didn't vote. But in 2012, Colorado, Washington, and Oregon voted to legalize. I was the spokesperson and the primary financer of the petition drive in Oregon in 2012, and we lost in Oregon while they won in Colorado and
That's right. It just took a while to actually come into play for
yeah,
us.
exactly. So I think California passed in 2016. Here in Oregon, we
Yeah,
passed
that makes
in
sense.
2014. A lot of the funders didn't want us to go in a non-presidential election here, but we did, and we still won overwhelmingly here in Oregon and Alaska, I believe, in 2014. But so, yeah, it probably went into adult use in California in 2017 after the 2016 vote.
All right.
Anyway,
Wow.
so that's when the recreational market started, and that's a lot bigger market. And so I know the situation in California is, it's different from state to state. But you left California at some point. I see you have a degree from CU, uh, and you went to Colorado. They were legal
Yeah. So
in
in
2015, I guess.
yeah. So yeah, let's break that story down. So I was operating under 215 in California,
Yeah,
and operating under 215 meant that really I could go up to my uncle's farm, and maybe I'm putting myself on blast with this, but I tend to be very transparent and open. But it means I could go up to my uncle's farm, I could get some material, I could wash it up at the farm, or I could bring it down back down into the bay where I had a little bit cooler of a facility, if you will. And I could go sell it to any of the dispensaries on Haight Street or throughout San Francisco. And this was like, oh, what year was this? 2004, I want to say, something around then. Um, and I was doing that, but I felt like I didn't have the protection that I really needed to be able to operate and to continue to grow. And that showed to be the case. In 2009, I had some federal attention, and I was told to stop what I was doing in California and go out to Colorado because Colorado is opening up and it's going to have regulations that are going to protect me sooner than California. Basically, I turned on power with PG&E on a big upgrade, and I had my door knocked on and told that I couldn't do what I was about to do. So I kind of went back to the drawing board, and I also around the same time got a phone call from a friend who had lived with me in Boulder during college days, and he said, "Hey, I'm opening up one of the first dispensaries in Colorado," and this was still wild west. This was pre medical regulation in Colorado, and I was all for it though. I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time, and I was raising my son, and it was really difficult with his mom, and it was really difficult to survive in Portland, Oregon back then. I mean, I'm sure
that's where
not much has changed, but
that's where
sorry.
I've been here in Portland, Oregon since 1984. I moved here
Okay.
to help the marijuana initiative, and Jack Hare and I both moved here in '84. But that's another
That's what's up.
story again. So
So in Portland, Oregon at the time, I was told that it was like second to Michigan in educated, impoverished people. It was tough to live back then,
yeah,
you know. It was a hard time in my life, I guess. So I got a phone call to help run a dispensary in Colorado, and I was like, okay, that's how I'm gonna, feed my kid right now. That's what I'm gonna go do. So I came and implemented a lot of what I learned from California's 215 market, even down to security, because I was very close with the Club 6 security in San Francisco in the Mission District. And that same security, due to me doing the flyers and DJing and being in that world, that same security that was hired to handle Club 6 and a lot of the clubs in the Mission District of San Francisco happened to be the same security at the Vapor Room in San Francisco. So I got in real close to security, and that's kind of how I got my into the shelf as well, because security, some of them were bud tenders, and they were, changing up their position at the dispensary, and some of them were buyers. And so I kind of got my foot in the door that way and learned a lot. And so when I first came out to Colorado in 2009, well, not first, I'd already been out here for college, but when I came back to Colorado in 2009 to help a friend run a dispensary. It was in an office building with no locks on the doors. And every day after closing, they take all the weed back home to their houses. It was a trip. And so we changed up a lot from that first day that I walked into that shop. Um, and I utilized a lot of my connections because I had already been selling weed for quite some time in Colorado. So I started contacting my connections and bringing them into our dispensary, because back in 2009 there wasn't regulation as to where that product came from. There was no tracking. So we were bringing in all kinds of product. I was wholesaling product throughout the Vail Valley and down into Denver, pretty much throughout the entire state. Eventually Vail got pretty small.
Yeah. I actually opened in Colorado with my medical marijuana clinics, THCF Medical Clinic, in the Denver area back in 2004, and we were pretty much the only medical clinic in Colorado until 2008, and then the market just boomed.
There was one other medical clinic. I don't know how legit it was, because in 2004, like you, I actually got my very first medical marijuana prescription or recommendation. It was so gray area back then, though. I went to a church.
It was the Russian guy.
Nope,
No?
it was not a Russian guy. It was a couple, and the woman is still involved in our industry. The gentleman, I don't know what his whereabouts is, but it was Thomas and Larissa actually owned one of the very first shops in Denver, and I don't know what you would call it, but it was in an abandoned church, basically, where we would hold meetings and educational experiences. And after your little meeting, then you could go see the doctor in the back, or see the disperser. Really, it wasn't a doctor; it was just somebody selling weed in the back. But yeah, it was I don't know, one of the first traps, like a lot of how we still operate is today.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. But yeah, 2004, I got my first medical card as well in Colorado. But by 2009, things were starting to roll up. There was a little bit more talk and movements. So by 2009, there were already probably 200, 300 dispensaries throughout Colorado. Whether they were licensed or not, they were up and running. So a lot of people took the liberties with some of the, I don't know, pre-regulatory talk to just kind of move forward. And if some people didn't take those liberties, he probably would have been left behind. So I think it takes some people taking those liberties to move us forward in reality. But Vail, Colorado got pretty small for me. I'm a DJ and I wanted more people. So I moved down to Denver by 2009, 2010 to start Essential Extracts, which was the first licensed tax-paying hash company in the United States. The one that really I was contacting the DOR, the IRS, and saying, hey, I don't want to pay taxes on some DBA or some roundabout route. I want to do this legitimately. I want to let you guys know what I'm doing, and I don't want to hide anymore. And I think I was probably one of the first people to get audited too, because I was so loud about it. But we operated in Colorado from 2009, pre-regulation into regulation into 2010, upwards to 2018. So, and from there, I've pivoted into more of an educational role, and I've helped thousands of brands launch throughout the world.
So these days, I see you were just in Copenhagen with Mila and other folks there. And you and I met in Cali, Colombia, where we were judging the Copa Farallones. What else is going on with you? And when you were doing the DJ gig in Copenhagen, I saw. Where
I didn't DJ in Copenhagen, but I did just DJ in Berlin. Maybe you saw that one. Yeah, so what am I doing these days? I went from more of an operational role, because that's kind of where the story ended, as we were just discussing. I started Essential Extracts, and there were some pivots in that realm and movements of labs. But up until, I believe, 2015, I had 0 partners. It was all bootstrapped. I reinvested every penny that I made, and didn't bring on any partners and any investors. By 2014, 2015, you started seeing some big money come into the cannabis industry. There was some more, data, and people were feeling more confident, and bigger money started coming in. And I was a small grassroots guy that didn't have any family money. And I needed to roll up if I wanted to survive, is how I saw it. So eventually I brought on some partners. Partnerships didn't really work out too well. Um, Ended in some turmoil, but eventually a global settlement where I took back 100% of my company. I'm owed a lot of money, but I kept it moving. And I started operations in California. I started operations in Missouri. And I continued to um, line up collaborations and licensing deals throughout the United States and the world. We've done collaborations in Spain and done some projects in Jamaica. And really, though, my passion was teaching. And with these collaborations and licensing deals, oftentimes I found myself in a position where I gave my all and I gave up everything and I put in my time and my effort and I created something special and I sold that special thing out. I did everything that I was assigned to do, everything I was contracted to do each and every time. But oftentimes I would find that my partners weren't doing what they were supposed to do. Um, and so I just continually got in these positions where my brand was alive and then somebody wasn't upholding something to make my brand really get to that next level. And so although I still own Essential Extracts 100% and I have zero investors and zero partners and zero company debt, we are still operational right now, which I'm blessed to say that because it's been a crazy rocky road over these last 15 years or so.
Yeah, it's hard
But
to stay in business. A lot of people say, it's hard to start a business. It's much more difficult to stay in business. That's for sure.
through all this tumultuous ups and downs and laws changing and people screwing other people over, it's difficult. And so I like control, and I started to pivot more into or less of an operational role and more of an educational role. And I kind of have been on the outside these days, looking in, which keeps me really in tune with a lot of the different markets because I'm consulting, I think, right now in over 20 states and probably over 7 countries as we speak, and keep me really in tune with what the market wants in different areas and what new products are developing. I have a research and development facility in Colorado where I get to really keep up with what's relevant because that's really important in my space as a teacher. I want to constantly be learning, so I get to play in a lab where money is not the concern. It's more so what I can learn so that I can spread that knowledge to the rest of my, you know, um, community. And I go around the world and I teach group classes, which has kind of been my new pivot. Because as a DJ and event producer, I have the background and I have the equipment. Like I'm standing in front of an entire stage setup right now. Well, it's behind you or behind in front of me, either way. So I have all the equipment, I have all the knowledge to string up sound, to set up video and audio, to do lapel mics. I have sound to pretty much power entire auditorium. So I had all that in my background, and so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna start throwing events again. In 2010, I started throwing events, and I had the marijuana enforcement division by 2000, I think 11 or 2012, contact me saying I can't keep throwing social consumption events with my licensed entity. So they were pulling my card. I had to back away from events for the last decade, and now that I don't have a license in Colorado and all my deals are licensing deals, um, I've decided to kind of get back into event production. And what better way to do that than with my own educational series? So we started Essential Education last year, and we will continue it this year. And that's kind of what I have dubbed my group classes. I'm continuing to do consultations. I had 2 clients this morning already. And I'm continuing to DJ, host events, and judge events throughout the world. That's kind of what I was just doing in Copenhagen. I was hosting and judging an event in Copenhagen. In Berlin, I was judging and DJing an event. And yeah, I managed to learn a lot from the DJ and music industry. And for the last 2 years, I've actually booked all my own on my own tour, the Essential World Tour, and I'm hitting multiple spots, whether I'm doing educational series, classes, consultations, DJing. It's kind of all under one umbrella as the Essential World Tour. And moving into 2024, I don't think I'm going to do that because I overwhelmed myself. I really, really overbooked myself and slightly devalued myself. So I am going to be focusing more on my own events moving forward rather than hosting and judging everyone else's event. I will be doing a lot more of my own. But I'm always looking for a balance. I'm always trying to find that balance. I get really, really overzealous and I want to be involved in all the events. I love it. I love being
Yeah.
on stage. I love talking to the people and I love, keeping that relevancy. A lot of people say, oh, Nicotine, you're relevant, but like it takes a lot to stay on people's minds and you got to keep doing road, and it's what I love doing. I'm passionate about it. Not everyone else can wake up at 4 a.m. and hop a flight for 20 hours and when you land you're already on stage the next hour speaking. I love doing that. So I'm going to continue running with it, but I'm constantly trying to find that balance and constantly learning each and every day, brother.
All right. I had a couple of my friends I noticed who graduated from the Ganjier program. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And so,
We like to call it
uh,
Ganjier,
Ganjier,
like the
okay, more like,
sommelier program, Ganjier.
yeah, it looks like Ganjier, but okay, Ganjier. And so that's kind of like a sommelier with a French wine steward, right? So uh, I saw that you're involved with that. What can you tell me about that program?
Yes. So as we've discussed, I'm a teacher. Um, I've been a teacher though well before the cannabis industry. One of my first jobs, real paying paycheck jobs, actually one of my only real paying paycheck jobs, I think, um, was a lifeguard and swim instructor at the Jewish Community Center. So I've taught little kids to swim. Eventually, I was doing some surf instruction, not for very long, but a little bit of surf instruction. And I found that I love teaching. I also eventually became an after school teacher at the Canal Child Care Center, which was a daycare children's center school, really, K-5 in San Rafael, California. And so I fell in love with these little kids, and watching them grow up and just teaching in general. So I think that I found a nice niche for teaching solventless. And I say niche and I kind of giggle because now there's a lot of my students that are teachers as well. And it's becoming less of a niche and more of a mainstream situation here with the solventless community. But I teach and I love it. And Ganjier is a program where I'm not just teaching about solventless. Ganjier is a program where the students actually sign up and they can take anywhere from, I don't know, about 2 weeks to 2 years. I don't think there's a limit right now on how long they take. We might be imposing a limit in the near future, but they do an online portion of the curriculum, which goes over everything in the cannabis industry from the history to compliance to the law to retail to patient customer interaction protocol to cultivation, processing, methodology. Really, we try to cover the entire gambit of the industry in the online portion. And so we have council members that specialize in these different areas, if you will. I specialize in processing. People like Frenchie specialized in the history, and so many other things. Frenchie is the
I
epitome
noticed,
of passion, really, what I strive for.
I noticed someone who used to work right this where I'm sitting right now was the office for the ballot drive and the campaign for legalization here in Oregon in 2012, and we hired Amanda Raymond. She
Ah,
came and worked here for a number of. Back then, she was just Amanda Rain, and she was on this show about 11 or 12 years ago. But I
Amanda's
noticed
amazing.
with the program as well.
Yes, Amanda is one of our council members, and she specializes in why am I I'm spacing. I'm completely spacing, but she helps a lot with the customer interaction protocol. Man, why am I
It'll come to you.
Yeah. It'll come to me. Um, there's so many pieces to the puzzle over there, but Amanda's amazing. She's super amazing, intelligent, humble woman, um, and powerful woman. We need more powerful women. So we're blessed to have her as part of the Ganjier program. But yeah, the students go through the online curriculum for some time, and after they finish that, some of them don't finish it and they start to sign up for the in person. But we recommend they finish the online. The in person training is 2 days at our campus in Humboldt County, California. We are in southern Humboldt, in the Salmon Creek River Shed, in that area, basically. And we're blessed to have Derek really purchase this campus, purchase the property that we've turned into the Ganjier campus. It used to be a Kung Fu dojo. So it already has like a lot of amazing feng shui energy and just powerful energy in those hills. And the students come up there for 2 days of in-person training, where day one we start with assessments, and we go through our entire systematic assessment protocol app, which is an app that we've developed over the last, I don't know, five plus years. And the app is basically what we use to assess cannabis. We felt that there was a big lack of knowledge when it comes to how to properly assess cannabis. What is quality? And so there is still a lot of ambiguity, in what is quality, but we're really trying to control those variables and hone in on the things that we do know. So that's what we do. We teach people to run through our app, which after you run through the entire app, which goes over aroma and appearance and flavor and experience, and maybe there's some other things in there that I'm missing. But after you go through the app, you get a final number and a scorecard with a QR code. Unfortunately, this app is only available to Ganjier students and Ganjier instructors and graduates at this time. But there's some other things in the works that might be more forward facing in the very, very near future. I just can't talk too much on it. Um, but the students go through that systematic assessment protocol where they go through the app, and we teach them what each individual section means and how to properly utilize the app on day one. And then on day two, we do a farm tour where we go up to a local organic Southern Humboldt farm, and we show the students what these local farmers, these people that have been, homesteading since day one up there in Humboldt County, whose family, were the first immigrants to get up into those hills, the first people to migrate up there. And we talk about plants, and it's a place where we talk about ganja 24/7. I think I talk about it in my sleep. In fact, we all kind of live together up there on the campus, and I'm sure some of them have heard me yelling in my sleep, because sometimes when I get really excited, I go to sleep and I talk in my sleep, and I talk about plants in my sleep. But that's what we do, unencumbered, talking about ganja, you know. And it's nice. It's refreshing. The Ganjier provides a platform powered by Green Flower Media. That is what I've been looking for. I've taught for various entities throughout the world and cannabis schools as well. I've taught classes, but this is the platform I was looking for. It's the professionalism, it's the council members that create this platform, and it's the constant evolution that is our industry, and so is our platform that keeps me motivated. And really, I feel like I found an amazing home with the Ganjier, because all of us as instructors up there are constantly evolving. There's no stagnant nature to this industry or to the plant. So unless we're constantly learning, we can't teach properly. So that's what we do. We're teaching up there, but we're constantly evolving.
If someone wanted to get involved in that, what does it take to go through and complete the Ganjier program?
Oh, just sign up. I'm not exactly sure the exact price of the classes. I just haven't caught up with the pay structure on that side. But go to theganjier.com or ganjier.com. I think they both forward. And take a look. It's really what we didn't realize as Ganjier council members, what we were creating. What we didn't realize is the community that we were building. And we always said that we were going to be, trying to create standards for the industry. And that was like a big part of what we sought out to do. But we didn't realize the connections we would make, or the connections that would be made on campus. So students are coming from all over the world. I'm now talking, and in business with graduates from the UK and students from the UK and graduates from Chile, my wife, and I mean, just all over the world. I remember one of the first students we had, I hired at my Missouri facility, and she worked there up until I worked there. It's been really cool to see the connections being made, the energy build.
So is there like a requirement in terms of having the certificate, and is it just
There is a
going through
test. So you
the
do the
online?
2 days of training, and then there's 1 day of testing, which we recommend people sign up for like a month later or 6 months down the line. Not too much further than 6 months, because some of the information starts to escape people at that point. But we recommend you take some time. However, a lot of students, they are coming from out of country, and they really only have that one trip to California allotted, or that they can afford, and so they're doing the 2 days, and then they might do the testing the next day. So we do 2 classes a month, and classes are very intimate. We'll have 4 or 5 instructors, I believe, for each class, and each class will have no more than 22 students, I believe, is where we cap them off. And most of the classes are around like 12 to 18, I'd say. So we're really,
What is
really
the test
nice and intimate.
consist of?
Sorry?
What do the tests consist of?
Yeah, and I'm not the best to describe the testing, because I generally like to be the smiling face, and after I've done my teaching, I like to leave, and let the other teachers who specialize in the testing handle it. Amanda Ryman being one of them. So that is one of her specialties, is testing. But testing consists of a multiple choice test, 100-point multiple choice test, which really is, everything they learned in the online curriculum is for that multiple choice test. And then we do a uh, customer interaction protocol test, which basically tests the students on how to properly interact with their customers, not saying anything illegal that they would say if they were a doctor, because things of that nature, I think, we really pound into our students. Like, you can't say, this is going to cure that. We don't do that in the industry as non-medical professionals. So some of those things, and then also just the demeanor of the GA, and the demeanor and how we should be holding ourselves. We're not trying to be know-it-alls, and we're not trying to be hoity-toity. I think that the demeanor of the GA and what we're putting out there to our students is that of a humble nature, and really just providing as much education and information as we can. So that's a lot of the systematic assessment. Sorry, the customer interaction protocol. Sorry, these are the focuses that I don't focus on. That's why we all have our specialties. And then at the very end, there is a systematic assessment protocol test, where they actually assess a flower, and they need to fill out a systematic assessment protocol on that flower, and fall within a range of the 4 minimum GA instructors who have assessed that same flower, and come up with a point range where the students need to fall within. Otherwise, they would fail. If they said something was more than 2 points out of that range, say, they said it was a 3 on the trim scale, and the judges or the instructors say it was between a 5 and a 7, they would fail that category. And I believe they're allotted 2 fails before they actually fail the test and have to retake. We want it to be difficult. We want it to be very similar to the sommelier program, and a master sommelier. There's 180 master sommeliers in the world. So we are just doing the first level of GA, and there will be other levels to the GA program as well after this.
All right. Well, I appreciate you going into depth on that. I've been interested, and so I'm sure
hopefully Derek and all the GA council members approve of what I just said, because I think I just talked about a lot of the other things that are not necessarily my forte, but it's an entire program.
I think
I
you did.
I
I'm glad.
graduated.
In terms of people who graduated the program, are there any in particular that you're proud of, or anyone you'd want to give a shout out to?
I mean, I'm really proud of my wife. She didn't pass the first
I
time.
met her there in Copa Farallones.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
had
yeah, yeah.
meals together.
Yeah, I'm really proud of my wife Betty because she didn't pass the first time, and maybe she doesn't want me talking about that, but it's not easy to pass, and um, you know, I kept pushing her that she needed to study more, and she's like, "Oh, I got this. I smoke weed every day." And I'm like, "Babe, but it's not about that. It's about actually, understanding the app and how we teach how to utilize this app." And so I think that's a big part of it. And she came back like stronger than ever. She did her studying like really hardcore because she was not going to fail again. She's a go-getter, and she crushed it the second time. And yeah, really proud of the wife for sticking to it because she came back from Chile to redo it. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of students. And I'm proud of all of our students, and even the ones that didn't graduate. I'm proud of them for coming up there and enjoying the amazing atmosphere with us and talking weed all day, every day with us. Yeah, some amazing friends have come through the program as well. Some clients have come through the program. I'm really stoked that each and every month somebody says in our circle, "Hey, I'm here because I heard about this program through Nicotee," or "I'm here because Nicotee's my teacher in the hash world," or it's a trip. It's really cool to see the reach.
Yeah, yeah, it looks like a good program. That's why I kind of did a little bit of research on it.
There's a
But
lot of there's well, not a lot, but there are multiple educational platforms out there these days, and I think that there's value in a lot of them. But I think I've really, really found the program, the platform that I can stand behind, that has the professionalism, that has the ability to, complete what we sought out to do. Um, so I'm blessed to be a part of the Ganjia.
yeah, yeah, the most prominent educational facility, of course, they're in Oakland, Oaksterdam, or so they're called. I think they're still going, aren't they?
I think so, and I've taught some one-off classes over there as well.
Yeah, I've been there a few times over the years. But if someone wants to reach out, when's your next DJing gig? You're going off. When's your
When is the
next
next
gig
DJ gig?
that you want to promote?
When is the next DJ gig? Well, really, the next event that I would like to promote because along with DJ event production and along with educational series that I produce, I'm
Essential.
also going to be producing some pairing events and more I don't know, all kinds of events. I have that background, as I mentioned. I have the DJing ability, so I'm actually building a playlist for this event right now because I'm going to be the host as well, so I won't be behind the turntables the entire time. But this event is going to be called, or it is called. We just launched it days ago. It's called High Tea Humboldt. It's a traditional hashish and tea pairing, and this really came to my mind because I was DJing an event in Northern California last year. It was at the Ego Clash. And I was DJing in a greenhouse for a bunch of glass blowers that were blowing glass live and a lot of the community coming in and out of this greenhouse. And it was a nice vibe. And towards the end of the event, I started getting a little bit more funky and a little bit more down tempo and playing some Afro house and just getting really meditative. And I started getting really meditative. And I think other people felt that. My buddy Eric pulled up with his traditional Chinese tea ceremony. And he's brought a lot of traditions from, the Chinese tea culture along with, other cultures. And he does this ceremony and when I first tried this pu'er style Chinese tea, it kind of comes in these bricks, and I start hearing about the traditions of them aging this tea, and certain regions and certain years are known for certain qualities. I'm like, yo, this is starting to sound a lot like hashish. And the reason for hashish was transportation. The reason, that they're drying this tea and pucking it up was for transportation and age and storage. And So I saw a lot of similarities, and when I tasted this tea and multiple types of tea in this from this region, I started tasting similarities: earthy nature, gunpowder, um, petrichor, things that kind of go hand in hand with how tea moved from country to country and how hash moved from country to country. You see different areas where it got more wet, and there's a lot of cool similarities. And then I started looking into a lot of the history on the music during, like the 1800s, and um, I thought that this was the time to throw an event that had never really been thought of before. And so I'm
It
doing a
sounds
traditional Chinese tea and traditional hashish pairing event where I have glass blowers that are going to be making all of our patrons 3-hole bowls so that they can taste hash as I have servers serving them different types of tea throughout the day. We also have dab and fruit pairing provided by Sarah Jane. We have the hookah running all day. Thanks to Lena of Cannabis Gardens. We have so much in store for December 8th in Humboldt County, California. And we're actually doing it at the Ganjier campus. It's going to be from 12 to 7. VIP guests, which unfortunately VIP sold out within 24 hours, less than 24 hours. VIP guests have the chance to stay on campus in our on-site cabins, and also get an organic breakfast the next morning. But our chefs will be cooking amazing, culturally appropriate food. I'm not trying to pair the food with the hash or the tea. I think it's harder to take a dab and then eat something. I think it's easier to take a dab and then drink something that's soothing to your throat.
you wanted to.
Um,
I mean,
there's been a lot of food and dab pairings, but I wanted to do something different. And I thought that tea would go perfect with hash. It's what I want to drink after I smoke a chillum.
I understand. I've been sipping on some vintage tea right here from a local
I'm drinking
famous
some
producer.
hibiscus fruit punch tea myself.
Okay, we're at the end of our show. We've had Nick Tanem on, Nika T in the DJ world. If somebody wants to reach out to you or the Ganjier program or essential events or extracts, what's the best way to do it?
Oh man, you Google my name and you can probably find my phone number at this point. I'm very easily accessible, but I'm not suggesting that. Please do shoot me an email, djnickaT@gmail.com. If you want to talk music, you can shoot me an email at nick@essentialextracts.ca if you want to talk hash. You can find me on Instagram at NIKKA__T because there's a lot of haters out there, I guess, and I've had to change up the name quite a few times. I am quite shadow banned on Instagram, so you got to type it all in like that, and then you got to scroll down. You got to click accounts and then scroll down halfway. It's a game, but somehow I still am, doing my thing out there. I'm blessed to be still here, doing my thing and doing what I love. You can also find some of my music on YouTube, searching Nika T. You can find some of my newest live mixes on Indico Colorado's YouTube, live in their cultivation here in Southern Colorado. I really like those mixes. They're really fun, and nothing that I make is prepared. It's all on energy. So the plants were really talking to me those days, and I made some fun mixes that I had no idea where they were going to go. So for me, even going back to listen to these mixes, I have a great time putting these mixes on. So check them out on YouTube. And yeah,
All right.
there's quite a
Yeah,
few
well,
other avenues you can find me.
appreciate it, Nick. Keep up the good work. I look forward to seeing you down the Ganjier Trail and work to restore hemp. Thank you.
Much love and respect. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.